Hi everyone, these are my thoughts and first impressions of the official release of Fallout 76. Now, no doubt you've heard an awful lot of bad press about this game from reviewers and streamers and other gamers. Is it all true? I mean, that was just the beta, right? Now it's gone live. Is it as bad as people say? Well, I'm going to lay it all out bare for you and let you know the truth, where the problems are, and there are many. But there's also some good bits as well. I've played the live version for about 6 hours worth now, and I've got a good idea of where the game's going and what the issues are. If you'd like to check out my full playthrough, you can click the link down below in the description and see it over on my Let's Play channel, and you can come and learn the game along with me. So what exactly is Fallout 76? Because the game does presume that most players are going to have some prior knowledge of the previous titles, but if you are unfamiliar with the franchise, well, imagine this. The world goes crazy and has a great big nuclear war wiping out most of humanity and forevermore altering the face of the earth. You, however, or your ancestors, were sealed up in a nuclear fallout shelter 100 years ago, and today the doors open and you can go springing out to see what world awaits you on the other side. And that is basically it. You're going through the wreckage of humanity, scavenging, trying to build a new life, crafting things, trying not to get irradiated from all the poisonous mutated animals and creatures and sources of nasty radiation lying around. It's a survival game, basically, a multiplayer survival game. So, starting right at the beginning, the first issue I ran into was a real inability to really customize some of the options that I would like when playing a game. For example, the graphics settings are pretty basic options in there for you to click between high, medium and low. And there's no field of view slider, you can't alter that. There's no option to turn motion blur off. Well, you can actually alter both, but you need to create and edit an INI file and save it on the computer to be able to do that. And it does work, but beware folks, if you do that, then it will have a knock-on effect with other things in the game, so just be warned. But it is possible. And getting on to the thing that really did concern me, over in the voice communications channel, the microphone by default is always on, as you've probably heard from other testers. Well, you can actually turn it off. This stops you from talking to and listening to other players, because of course this is a multiplayer version of Fallout. It does also give you the options to limit it to only your team or just the area that you're in. But, I mean, come on, how hard could it be to put a push-to-talk option in there, which would be perfect? Because I've streamed the game, loads of other people stream the game, and to be honest, you don't want to listen to someone talking to their fans and communicating whilst you're busy crafting away or trying to do one of the events in this game. These options should be there. They've been in games for years. It really has no excuse for not being there. And while we're on the subject of graphics and settings, a lot of people reported major performance issues during the beta testing. I didn't run into any, but I do have a very powerful PC and I only run it at 1080p resolution, so I seriously wouldn't expect any issues to crop up. But so far, so good. Now, as about the graphics themselves, which people have complained about, I feel like there's two sides to this. During daylight, running around in the daytime, I think the graphics look kind of nice. They do look good. We've got some nice autumn colours on the trees, the sun comes through, the scenery and everything comes to life. However, going to darkened areas and nighttime comes along, and I don't know whether this is intentional, but everything looks pretty horrid, to be honest. It looks pretty dated. It looks like a game from 5 or 6 years ago. It doesn't look how I would expect, and I have run everything on the maximum settings that I can. A lot of the buildings and houses and the models in towns, they just don't look like they've got good textures on them. It's kind of disappointing. Also, take a look at this massive beast that I found in Grafton. This was a level 30 monster that I ran into during an event that I really wasn't expecting to. But, I mean, it looks... I mean, what is that thing it's doing? It's supposed to be a tar or oil attack, that black effect that's all over the screen and raining inside the building. I mean, what the hell is all that about? Are you telling me they couldn't have implemented a better looking attack for a monster than that? So I found this quite strange, really. In the bunker that you start off in, that looks really nice. I like the artifact. I like the style. And you go out into the world, and I like the daylight and the autumn colours and the sun. It looks pretty. But then you go into towns, you go into nighttime, and everything looks old, dated. The next issue I ran into was with the character creation, which at first glance does appear to offer you quite a few nice options to customize your character before heading out into the world. However, the game has clearly been designed with a console and with a control pad in mind for you to use, and using the mouse and keyboard, the controls just don't seem to port over very well. I found the menus awkward to switch between. I found the adjustments, there's no sliders, by the way. There's no obvious sliders for adjusting skin tones and nose lengths and all the rest of it that you can adjust. It's done very awkwardly with the mouse. And you know what? The whole experience just had me feeling, just balls to it. Let's just go with that. It was just too much work to try and get the character customized just exactly how I would have liked. And it wasn't particularly pleasant. So I was kind of disappointed by that. You guys over on the consoles, you probably won't run into as much trouble, but if you have, do let me know. Unfortunately, this is also a theme throughout the rest of the game, where I found the whole menu system for everything you do in the game beyond this point just to be less than optimal, let's say that. I felt like I was fighting against it a lot of the time, trying to find the right menu, to go into the right settings bit, to look at the map in the right way. It was not intuitive in any way whatsoever, and I always felt like I was fighting against the game to do what I wanted to do. It's a bit like Windows 10. You know the options are in there somewhere, you just have to figure out which hoops you have to jump through in the right order to get to the right part. Which leads us into the gameplay of Fallout 76, and of course, it's a survival game at heart. From the moment you leave the safety of the vault, you're going to have to be thinking about where your next meal is coming from. Yes, folks, you do have to worry about food and water levels. It's not too oppressive, it's not too detailed, but it does wear down pretty fast, so you always need to make sure you've got some water and some food with you. Now, there is plenty of food out in the world for you to either scavenge or hunt down. There's a lot of hunting goes on, and most animals you kill can be cooked over a campfire. The only downside is that everything tends to be radioactive, and the same applies to the water. There's plenty of rivers, there's plenty of sources of water, but you get dirty water, which you can boil over a campfire to produce boiled water, which at least reduces your chance of picking up a disease. Yeah, you get diseases. These seem to be more temporary debuffs, at least the ones I've come across so far, and they can be cured. But yeah, it's survival at its heart. Now, of course, the water is also radioactive most of the time, unless you manage to find a clean source somewhere. There is purified water in the game. So whichever way you look at it, you're going to be taking on radiation. And this is a theme throughout the game. It's something you have to manage, really. You can't avoid it altogether. You can reduce it, certainly, but no, it is a management thing. As you get irradiated, your maximum hit points goes down commensurate with the level of radiation that you've come into contact with. You can remove it. There's Rad-X and Rad-Away and other things in the game which increase your resistance to it or just clean it up altogether. And you can scavenge those, and I think you can craft those later on as well. But it's something you're going to have to manage all the way through. So you need to eat, drink, and watch that radiation. Different foods that you cook also give you temporary buffs as well, and the same applies to drinks. You can make teas out of the various herbs and flowers that are growing around the woods. So yes, get cooking, see what you can make. It's all going to help, and it feeds you as well. And when you do feed yourself, it also restores a little bit of hit points too. So with part of your brain always focusing on where your next meal is coming from, the other part needs to focus on scavenging, because that really is what the rest of the game is all about. The world is absolutely cluttered with junk, from old teapots to knackered old engines, all sorts of stuff. I mean, you can pick up logs and use those. There's ore down the mines. There's all sorts of stuff. Whatever you pick up, everything can be used. It can be scrapped, it can be turned into raw materials, which you can then use to build stuff and repair your equipment with. Yes, equipment. There is combat in the game. You can equip armor, you can equip lots of different guns, you can craft them, you learn new recipes or attachments for guns by breaking guns down that you've picked up that you don't want anymore. The crafting side of this is actually quite involved, and I think it's one of the better sides to the game. There are a lot of recipes that you can also find out in the world and pick up from quests as well. More on questing in a moment. The only downside to this is that inventory management becomes a real pain. I believe there's mods out there already to help with this, but it is a pain. And not just in that you've got an encumbrance level, which fills up really fast. And I don't like throwing things away, especially in survival games. I don't like throwing things away, but it fills up so fast with stuff that you pick up, bits of food, materials, weapons and stuff, and if you can't get to your stash in your camp, or there are other stashes located around the world that you can use, it's like a universal global box. Wherever you find a stash, you can put stuff in and take it out of. It's quite handy, but there never seems to be one just near enough when you really need one, when you're overloaded. We don't like throwing stuff away in games like this, and the limit is quite low. It's something you've always got to manage. But when you do have a camp, which is your base, by the way, which is portable, you can move it around with you after you've built things up, which is another quite nice feature. You put stuff in the stash there, that also has a limit, and that fills up pretty fast too. I hope they're going to increase that in the future, because it's not fun having this really tight inventory management. It's taking away from the enjoyment of the game, which is the exploration and the crafting and the survival. And this just puts a cramp on it. Now, exploration is another part of the game that I initially quite liked. When you look at the map, you kind of realise it isn't all that big. You can actually move between the points quite quickly. And a lot of the key locations and things you might expect to find are marked on your map right from the start as well. So it's not like you're going out blind exactly, but you do stumble across little cabins in the woods and little places and things where you can loot stuff and pick stuff up. That does feel kind of cool. And there's also a fast travel system available as well, although you can't use fast travel when you're in combat or when there's enemies near, because that would really suck in a player versus player situation, right? If you're hunting someone down and they just fast travel out of there. So that makes sense. It is available low in the game at the rest of the times. But one thing that did kind of annoy me was when I discovered that for all there are some great locations available and some big towns, like Grafton is quite a big town, you go there and you find that most of the buildings are just there for show. They're sealed up. There's no way in. You can't explore and scavenge in every possible location. And there's only certain parts of the city that you can go into that are open. The buildings are available. That feels kind of like a cheat. It feels like they've put these big places in. Maybe they'll open up with DLC or patches or something in the future. I don't know. But it feels like they've put lots of areas on the map, but they're not fully accessible. And you know what? In this sort of game, yeah, that really sucks. But designed very much to help you with the exploration side of it is the quest side of it. Now, I should say that there are no living NPCs in this game. You will come across NPCs, but they'll be in the form of robots, automatons, and computer consoles. I guess you can class that as an NPC. It's something you can get information out of, and it is part of the quest. The only time you'll hear other human voices are from these notorious holotapes, and if you've watched previous reviews of this game, you'll have heard what people think of these.
Hey everyone, this is Derek. Making my final report on the events at Harper's Ferry.
The quests are pretty much basic. Go here, find the body of, or find the computer of X person. Check that out. Listen to the holotape recording that they've left you. That tells you where to go for the next one. You go there, you maybe pick something up, you get another holotape, you find another body or a computer, then you go to the next place. This does lead you around the map, but it seems to be such a bad way of doing it, if I'm honest. And these holotapes themselves, you start them off playing, and they talk in the most slowest, drawling tone, monotone, over and over again until you just want to switch the damn thing off because it drives you mad.
We won't be getting any more help from these free states guys.
Sorry, I had to jump out of that mode there. It drives me mad, absolutely mad. Now, if this was a cutscene in a single-player game, it wouldn't be so much of an issue, but this is a multiplayer game. The world carries on in the background behind you. You're listening to this stuff. It either plays over the top of what you're doing whilst you're still trying to walk around, and if there's other players around you and everyone's got voice comms on, they're talking over the top of your holotape as well, all distractions. Or, worse than this, you've got monsters coming around behind you, attacking you whilst you're listening to a tape. You jump out to attack the monster, the tape still plays, you can't focus on either thing properly, and it just feels really badly done. I mean, I find myself trying to turn the tapes off as much as possible because you don't have to listen to the lore. You can if you want. You can read the computer consoles, which, again, they're all monochrome coloured green and black, and it's just page after page of reading. If you want the lore, it's there. for those that do. I found myself, because they don't really matter for the quest, you just read the thing you had to, you click it off, that gives you the next quest, you run off to that and you turn the tape off as fast as possible, because the voices just annoy me. It doesn't sound good. I know it's supposed to be that retro style sound on the tape. I know why they've done it like that. I know why it fits in. But the way it all works together, with the world carrying on around you and monsters respawning and attacking you and players doing stuff, it just doesn't really work. For me, personally, anyway, I didn't like it. There's also a crap ton of bugs with the quests as well. I mean, sometimes the holotape just won't play and you have to leave the area and then come back in and it'll play. And I had a quest bugged on the stream last night where I wasted an hour trying to complete a quest. I think it was to find the mayor's office in Grafton. And I was in the mayor's office because the mayor, and no spoilers, but the mayor was there. And it just wouldn't complete. And I went round and round in circles thinking I must have missed something. And I logged out and back in and it auto-completed. And it was just little buggy things like that. There are a ton of other bugs in the game, but anything that wastes your time is always kind of annoying. You do expect a few bugs and glitches to be in a game when it's released, especially one from Bethesda. But there's a lot in this, a lot. And it really doesn't give you that nice polished feeling to a game like it was ready to be released. Now, there are also world events in the game which kick off when you approach a particular area. It usually involves having to defend a point or fight off wave after wave of monsters coming in. Other players can join in. You can all play together cooperatively. You can either work together as a team or you can just turn up. You can also fast travel to an event that another player has started, which is also pretty good. Now, the idea behind these is quite nice. It allows players to work together cooperatively. You all get a good share of the rewards. Nobody misses out. And you can join in even after one has already started. So it all seems to be pretty good. But at the moment, there's quite a few bugs in these. I was playing one at the airport just last night, and a few waves of these scorched creatures came in, which we were fighting off and we were doing quite well. And then the timer was still ticking down and it said we hadn't killed one particular wave off, and yet all the creatures marked on the screen were gone. They disappeared. We saw them come running in, we killed them off one by one, and we hunted around for ages, and one of them had got stuck behind a tree well out of the event area. It had been running in a mob. I don't know how it ended up over there, but it got stuck and we couldn't get to it in time and the event was failed. So that really kind of sucked. But maybe that was just a one-off. So yeah, in general though, the events are a good idea. And I've mentioned players there. Outside of the events, there's also player contact. Now, when you first start off, when you're really low level, there's no player versus player. It gets unlocked, the ability to join in on that, as you level up a little bit. And it's also pretty optional. You don't have to join in if you don't want to. If you don't want to be attacked, someone else runs up to you and starts hacking at you with a machete, as happened to me. Well, if you don't respond, they're going to do actually very little to you. And I think they'll get flagged as a killer or something, and there's a bounty that goes on them. I don't know. I haven't really played too much with that side of thing, but I do know that it works as intended. If you want to go into player versus player mode, if you want to flag yourself, you can actually tune into one of the radio stations in the game. I think it's Hunter versus Hunted or something like that. And whoever else listens to that radio station, well, everyone gets flagged, and you get a target to go and kill, and someone else will be giving you as a target to come and kill. You can fight each other if you want to. Dying in player versus player isn't a big deal. You only lose a little bit of scrap. It's not the end of the world. And you can get back to your corpse pretty quick and join in and go on some more. So the multiplayer side of this, it seems a little bit empty. There's not many players on each map. It's not often you'll come across too many. If you like that, that's good. I think the idea was for that to be like you're exploring a ravaged world after all. There's not many people left in it. But of course, you don't have to fight each other. You can actually team up and play cooperatively and work together, which I think would probably be a whole lot more fun. As at the moment, I don't see any particular benefit from the player versus player, other than just the fun of engaging in it. Now, I've mentioned enemies quite a few times, and I think it's time to talk about the AI. Now, you get mutated creatures that have been affected by the radiation, things like mole rats, which will tunnel up out the ground and attack you. You get various mutants around the world, some zombie-type creatures. And of course, you get just aggressive robots that have just gone wild and see you as a threat. Generally speaking, none of these enemies are too tough for you to deal with unless they are substantially higher level than you. And the melee monsters, most of the creatures and things that want to run up and hit you, the AI on them seems to work okay. The problem I have had is the AI on anything armed with a gun. It's absolutely nuts. As soon as they see you, they aggro you and they will start shooting, regardless of whether there's a line of sight to you or not. Like if you put a building in between yourself and one of these enemies with a gun, it'll still try shooting you through the walls. Where's the guy shooting me from? Is someone shooting me through a building? Is there a bloody NPC able to shoot me through a building? I've had it where I've run inside a building and the enemy's been on the roof, and the whole time where I'm trying to listen to one of those holotapes, by the way, that I mentioned earlier, this enemy's been plugging away rounds into the ceiling above my head with no chance of hitting me because it knows I'm directly below it. It doesn't try to path around the building to come down and get me. It doesn't come down the stairs. It just tries to shoot through the ceiling. And I've seen that time and time and time again. The worst was when I went into a lighthouse with a spiral staircase and stuff was stood at the bottom and even outside the door, shooting through the walls, trying to shoot through the staircase to shoot at me at the top, which I had no chance of hitting. It needs some serious fixes, please, Bethesda. That just isn't right. It's an annoying background noise for one thing, and it just doesn't feel right. Also, you remember that big snow beast thing that I mentioned earlier in the graphic settings, the one that looked white but threw tar at you? Well, something really weird happened with that. I found it aggroed in Grafton, and it was running after things, and an enemy mutant started shooting at it, which was fair enough. But it was getting chased by a level 1 floating eyeball thing, which was shooting at it and doing quite a bit of damage. We've got Eyebot taking on a level 30 enraged Grafton monster. Are you serious? And I think it was that level 1 robot eyeball or whatever it was that actually killed it in the end. Needs work are the words I'm looking for. It all needs work. And about the only other thing I need to mention is the base building aspect to the game. Now, survival games often go hand in hand with base building because you need to build somewhere to store your stuff, to build your crafting stations, to keep yourself safe at night, right? And also maybe grow a little bit of food. Well, you can do all that in here, and you can pack your base up and take it away with you, which is also pretty cool. I haven't actually got too far into this yet. It is nice that you can move the base around. You can also fast travel back to it from anywhere on the map. But when you're choosing somewhere to build, try not to choose somewhere with a lot of hills. The side of a hill is not a great place for a base, in my experience. Okay, let's cut to the chase. Do I think this game is worth it? Would I recommend it? Well, to be quite honest, I would say give it 6 months to a year if you're interested in getting it. See how the patches come, see how the things get fixed, and then see what the price is like in a year, because you should be able to pick it up on sale somewhere. Because let's be honest, this is not ready. This is not a fully finished product. Yes, we can always expect a few glitches in code that always escape and they get patched out. I'm not worried about those. But things that were really should have been in there from the start. Settings for the graphics, field of view, push to talk for voice comms. Things like that should have been in from the start. But there are just too many bugs and glitches, and it becomes a less than enjoyable experience to play. The other question, of course, is who is this game aimed at? Because it is quite a move away from the previous Fallout series. There's no NPCs to interact with, they're all dead. There's no real lore and story and factions and alliances. There's no one to help and work for, and there's no characters to build up a repartee with. It just doesn't really feel like that. So I think that the people who loved previous Fallout games, whilst they'll be drawn to this for the name and out of curiosity and maybe just out of loyalty, I think a lot of them will be disappointed. Then again, is it aiming towards the survival game fans? Quite possibly. And it is implemented reasonably well, I think. It's not too hardcore. You don't have to worry about bowel movements and carbohydrate intake like in some other games. But then it's not too simplified either. That might be where the pitch in this and just making the Fallout name something to attract players. I don't really know. The multiplayer side of it, I'm not going to say gimmicky. It's just not... It doesn't make the game. Let me put it that way. It does not make the game. Maybe it's a trial run for some further game they're going to plan in some series. I really don't know. But again, it's not a bad feature. It's just not a huge selling point either. Only you as an end user can really decide if the cost of this game is worth it to you, based on how much entertainment, how many hours of gameplay you'll get out of this. Personally, I don't think I'm going to get my full money's worth out of this one, because I suspect I'm going to lose interest and lose patience with it. But I will persevere with it a little bit longer. Don't forget, you can check out my link to the full playthrough series over on the other channel. But once I've built a great big base and explored the map, which I don't feel is going to take me all that long, then what is there left to do at the end? What is the end game in this? Are they going to patch something in or add DLCs? Big world bosses to come in that players need to group up together to take down? I really have no idea, but I can't see where the end goal is with this one, and therefore I can't see me playing it for a huge amount of time. The story is just too much of a pain in the arse to get into in this with the holotapes and stuff, and there's no NPCs and characters and factions and alliances to be made, so it just seems a little bit more shallow in that regard. Anyway, folks, let me know your thoughts. As always, let me know if you like this game or not, or if it's too much of a departure. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you again next time.